Hey, welcome to the Backyard Professor videos. I just had a very somber moment, a very sad moment. I just learned from my dear friend Derek Lambert of Myth Vision that Derek indicated Dr. Michael S. Heiser, world-renowned biblical scholar, has just died. He died of cancer and he was far too young. He wrote simply one of the most magnificent doctoral dissertations in existence on the ancient Hebrew Council of the Gods. And he was kind enough to send me a copy of that when I requested it from him. And that was back when I was an apologist for the Mormon Church. Now you can't say Mormon because it's a victory for Satan according to the current prophets. So it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But Michael Heiser was an expert in Hebrew, and he encouraged me to study the Hebrew, which I have sporadically. I never did become truly fluent, but through Dr. Heiser, he helped me acquire some very good Hebrew lexicons and dictionaries. He was always a gentleman to me when I talked to him on the phone or online, and I will greatly miss his contributions to the world. I remember a debate that he had in print with David Bokovoy, a well-known former Mormon now, but a well-known Mormon scholar who, because of his linguistic honesty with what the Hebrew said and meant, and with his not simply towing the line of a doctrinal interpretation, but he would go to the Hebrew, was not hired at BYU because he was considered too liberal. In other words, he would not simply go to the conclusions of the church leaders, but he would go to the Hebrew. And Dr. Heiser always told me to do that, and I have tried to do that in my studies when I do look into Old Testament stories and ideas or someone's comment on the Old Testament. I always try to go to the Hebrew. Dr. Heiser also influenced me in interesting ways through that debate with David Bokovoy. David Bokovoy was a gentleman. He disagreed with Heiser on a few items. They both agreed on the Hebrew Council of the Gods without question. But Dr. Bokovoy gave Dr. Heiser the last word in print, and they did publish it in the Farms Review of Books. That's a wonderful discussion. Dr. Heiser also wrote many scholarly articles, and he wrote several books. And so I have his latest book, The Unseen Realm. I have not been able to read it yet because of my busy schedule, but I will now read it in honor of Dr. Heiser, who was always a cut above the rest of the biblical scholarship, definitely above the rest of us biblical students who always tried to grasp the essence of the Hebrew scripture. And Dr. Heiser told me once, he said, the dingling evangelicals and the dingling Mormon people and the dingling whoever who came up with all these wild, crazy theories in order just to get an article published or in order to produce a book. He said, this is why I always insist on going to the Hebrew. And he drilled that into me quite a bit too. I wasn't a formal student of his, but I was a friend, not really well acquainted, but we did have our conversations. I have gotten a few of his books in my library. So sad news tonight, Dr. Michael S. Heiser, world-renowned biblical scholar and friend and gentleman, and a willing advocate for fighting for the truth of the Bible from the Hebrew, Jewish, ancient point of view instead of just accepting every modern wind of doctrine that was blown about, no matter how fascinating or interesting, whether it concerned the Nephilim or the seraphim or whatever type of mysterious, Enoch, the mysterious aspects of the Old Testament. Heiser kept us all grounded firmly in the actual Jewish Hebraic exegesis that is so critical for helping the Bible say what it said instead of imposing our own interpretations for sensationalism or for getting people excited of the scripture for all the wrong reasons. Dr. Heiser helped me learn that there are many, many, many hundreds of reasons to get very, very excited about the ancient Hebrew scriptures on its own basis. And so I join with my dear friend Derek Lambert from Myth Vision in saying, rest in peace, Dr. Michael S. Heiser. You have elevated the discourse of biblical materials and of the Jewish culture and of helping us understand that there is still an enormous amount of information that we ought to be cognizant of and which we remain in ignorance. You have helped pave the way to helping us gain a broader context, a greater light and knowledge. And for that, we all thank you deeply from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you, Dr. Michael S. Heiser. Rest in peace, my friend.